Welcome back to another edition of Low Blow Shorts. My name is Jared Leggett. I'm going to be your host, and thank you to all of those of you who watched and sent some nice comments after our first episode of this new venture last week. I'm really glad that I'm not alone in noticing how weird The Rock is today. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. It's on the YouTube channel. Today, we're going to talk about SummerSlam, which insanely takes place on Saturday. And for one of the biggest shows of the year, in a year that's supposed to be WWE's return to prominence, the show has kind of snuck up on us like a question about Vince McMahon's sex scandals and an otherwise really pleasant and incident-free post-WWE show press conference. And it's understandable if you're still figuring out how to feel about it all. But if you look just a smidge underneath the surface, I think there's sneakily a lot to look forward to. And I know what you're thinking now. Jer, you're only saying this because you've got a SummerSlam party to promote. And yes, that is true. I do have a SummerSlam party to promote. Come watch SummerSlam in the Woodshed. A beach party, limbo, beer pong, a SummerSlam Kahoot table quiz, food and booze until late, all before SummerSlam live and in full on the big screen. It's going to be class. But also, I genuinely mean it. It is going to be a class show. I'm very sure it is. So hear me out, and we'll look into 7 reasons why SummerSlam 2024 could be amazing. We're still getting used to how pay-per-views look in the Triple H era of WWE. And yes, I know what you're about to say. I do still call them pay-per-views. I turned 37 just this week, but in terms of my mental age when it comes to adjusting to new names for things that I've always called them, consider me like an Irish 60-year-old da who still calls the TV channels either Sky Digital or NTL. Premium live events can go in shite. How can you be premium if you're every single month reliably without fail before one match has even been announced? Anyway, Triple H pay-per-views are still taking some getting used to, mainly because most cards these days have around 5 matches that all have a really strong build-up and get given time in the show to tell their story. Special shows like SummerSlam and WrestleMania are loaded with around 7 matches, which in the Vince McMahon era would have typically left around a solid hour of backstage skits where Teddy Long and The Godfather would be hanging around having to uncomfortably play up racial stereotypes for no particular reason. A slimmed down card with time for each match to shine can feel great when you're watching it, but a little lacking when you're coming into it, just because we're used to getting advertised so much more. So you kind of have to now hunt for the potential gold. And when you do it with this 7-match card, there's actually a lot to look forward to here. Let's start with Logan Paul versus LA Knight for the United States Championship. A match between a YouTube megastar who's annoyingly good at wrestling, particularly in a big spot like this, versus a man who's managed to combine all of the non-weird aspects of The Rock's character with Daniel Bryan's ability to get people chanting variations of the word yes. On the face of it, you look at this and say, oh, this is finally where LA Knight gets his big win. And the bookies' odds opened with him as a big favorite, but they've actually swung back closer to even lately, and with good reason. Logan Paul pretty much never loses big singles matches. He's lost a grand total of 3, in fact, since his WWE debut 2 years ago, and they were to Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Cody Rhodes, i.e. WWE's banner names. WWE are extremely protective of him, and you can see why. He's a huge name who's fully bought into working with them. It's about as solid a celebrity investment as you can make, and not one that you'd consider devaluing easy. On the flip side of that is that LA Knight loses these kind of matches a lot, and it doesn't actually affect him in any negative way. He just rolls out on SmackDown the next week again saying, yeah, and the fans don't actually care what's happened previously because he's so charismatic. From a business standpoint, do you risk devaluing Logan Paul's relatively unblemished run in WWE for a guy who doesn't necessarily need to win this? I tend to still lean slightly towards an LA Knight win and then parachute Logan into a more main event program. But like the bookies, I'm not as sure of it as I was a couple of weeks ago. And for me, that makes this kind of a can't lose match for both people and really, really interesting. Bayley defends her WWE Women's Championship. inexplicably against Nia Jax. Why? Why? WWE, do you realize you could have had Bayley versus Lyra Valkyria here in an absolute banger and an opportunity to have a statement match for someone who could be the future of the WWE women's division by just having the Queen of the Ring final go the other way, right? What are you doing? Instead, no. Here we are again having to take Nia seriously in a storyline that doesn't even take Nia Jax seriously.
You hurt me because you're big, you're clumsy, and you're reckless.
Every major Nia Jax storyline ends up coming back to, you're dangerous in the ring. She's so dangerous in the ring that it can't not come up. And even people who do defend her do so by saying, no, she can't be that dangerous.
Nia Jax would not be on WWE Raw. She would not be brought back. She would not be allowed to work with other top talent if she was constantly dangerous.
If there's ever one expert you can trust when it comes to discussing safety in a wrestling ring, it's the floating head of Ryback. A man who, by the way, by his own logic, was fired by WWE and never brought back. So maybe actually he's got a point here about Nia. But also, fuck off, Ryback. We can debate this until the cows come home. But to put a button on it, okay? If you had to constantly come out every few months and defend yourself because everyone who observed your work said that you were a racist, if being racist or not being racist became your entire brand to the point that it was regularly discussed to your face on international television, if every time someone even complimented you, it was weird floating head beefcakes talking about how people don't know what they're talking about if they call you a racist, you're probably at the very least 5 to 10% racist. See also Nia Jax and being dangerous. And yet, this match is still somewhat intriguing. No, not for the match itself. It's a Nia Jax match, but for the potential of a Money in the Bank cash-in, as Tiffany Stratton has been a constant part of this feud, so it seems nailed down that we at least get an attempt here. But still, we could have gotten Bayley against Lyra Valkyria. Come on, WWE. You let yourself down here. Braun Breaker feels absolutely nailed on to end Sami Zayn's Intercontinental Championship reign. And sometimes you don't need to overthink things. And this could be really interesting if they got ballsy with it. Let Braun come out and do a Goldberg-Lesnar Survivor Series style squash on him. Sami won their first match at Money in the Bank, and he's going to be fine with a loss. This doesn't need to be a significant match. It doesn't need to be given 20 minutes. It can just be a statement to how badass Braun Breaker is, and that could make this really interesting. On paper, Gunther versus Damian Priest is a match that could go a similar direction, but also seems nailed on for a new champion. But to discuss this one, I think we need to pair it with the other Judgment Day title match on the card by talking about Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship. Here's where we left the latest Judgment Day on-screen drama.
I hate you, Liv! Are you stupid? Are you deaf? ¿No entiendes lo que te estoy diciendo, cabrona? I don't like you! You've ruined my life over and over again!
That's, of course, Daddy Dom declaring his disdain for Liv Morgan, who has been attempting to take him and everything else away from Mammy as part of her revenge tour. I don't think Irish people can get away with saying Mammy. Like, it just sounds like we're asking for our Mammy. We're not cool like that. We can't get away with it. But look, I persist. With Dom back in her corner, Rhea now has her sights set on regaining the title she had to vacate to injury just after WrestleMania. And the Judgment Day lately has been in a kind of weird state of flux. Like, is Carlito a member? Why are Finn, JD, and Carlito bad guys, but we have Priest as a world champion stepping up to Gunther and telling his teammates that he'll go it alone for title matches? Are we really going to start cheering for Dominic with that haircut? I don't think so. Meanwhile, in the media and on socials, Priest has been discussing how happy he is to have Rhea back as his road buddy. And in storylines, he was the only one Rhea actually tipped off about a return a few weeks ago. I think Gunther versus Priest goes on early in the card, and maybe there's some Ludwig Kaiser interference or something that draws out the Judgment Day, or maybe Finn, JD, and Carlito just go against Priest's wishes and stop this from being one-on-one. But Priest is losing this match. Gunther's walking into the next pay-per-view in Berlin as champion, and after the bell, I think Priest is a bit of a public spat with his fellow Judgment Day members. Which brings us to later that night. Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley with Daddy Dom in Rhea's corner. Or is he? I think there's a mix-up here where Dom ends up accidentally costing Rhea the match. Rhea's pissed and gets in his face. Liv wants to take everything from her, and now she's officially taken her championship and Rhea's entitlement to a title shot. Liv takes down Rhea from behind, possibly with a belt, while Dom looks on in shock. And then they go full Christian and Trish Stratus at WrestleMania 20 and shift the fucking face off each other. Finn, JD, and Carlito storm the ring looking shocked. Then their face turns and they join in for a big group hug. Damian Priest runs down asking what the fuck is going on, and the Judgment Day beat the crap out of him before celebrating with the new Mammy. Again, sorry, I'm Irish. Liv Morgan has taken Rhea's title. She's taken her Dom. And now she's taken the Judgment Day, while best mates Rhea and Priest have lost their titles and gotten the boot. Speaking of madness, let's discuss CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, with Seth Rollins playing special guest referee. And look, I've been about as vocal a critic of Punk ever since he came back to wrestling with AEW a few years ago. And I stand by all of it. He's a knob. But fuck me, this has been an amazing storyline. It's been so good that the one time I tried to be a smart arse about it all, when I tweeted about Punk just happening to travel to Scotland and having a referee shirt handy when he screwed Drew at Clash at the Castle, within minutes, WWE had a video ready making sense of it all.
Give me that one. I don't care. Just give me
I
the
got
shirt.
this one. I got this one.
Why do you? Don't worry about why.
Can I have that back? That's it.
You have it back. Don't worry.
Okay, all right.
That is attention to detail. Bravo, lads. That's fantastic. For the last year, since embracing his character's whiny, worst impulses and going heel, Drew McIntyre has been the best thing in WWE by a distance. And it's something that I've been promising people would happen ever since I was this spotty kid refereeing his matches with Sheamus in Irish Whip Wrestling. By the way, why did I just pretend not to see the low blow there? What even distracted me there? Like, I just decided to turn around slowly, Rana. I couldn't even say that, like, there was a fly distracting me because I turned around too slowly. I just said, I'm going to just have a little stretch over here. That was bad. But yes, I can confirm that I'm name dropping and being like, oh, I actually know Drew McIntyre. Don't worry though, I'm sure Drew does the same for me. Like, I'm sure he's out having pints with Booker T, for example, and he's like, you know that shite old wrestler who never made it, who runs a video podcast and some parties and pubs? He used to ref for me. To go off on a slight tangent, my favorite Drew memory is the one time we were at a show and I brought a girl that I was with at the time as a way to kind of try and spend the weekend together, because I was usually off doing shows every weekend. In the back before the show, Drew sprints up to me yelling, "Fucking hell, Lego, is that your bird?" I do a very good Drew McIntyre impression. I know, you don't need to tell me, by the way. And like, I'm surveying the scene. He's wide-eyed and excited having seen her. And he's also this very tall, handsome, jacked, charismatic man expressing admiration from the girlfriend of, well, look, you saw how spotty I was and awkward in that video. I didn't stand a chance, lads. So I just laid it bare with him and was honest and said, Drew, you have so much in this life. I'm going to be bragging about knowing you in a video podcast in nearly 20 years. And I literally just have that girl out there. Just let me have this one nice thing. And he laughed, patted me on the shoulder and said, I'll leave you be, buddy. Like, what a fucking lad. What a guy. And you know what? Even if he was a snake and fucked her anyway, when your social media game is as good as Drew McIntyre's has been over the past few weeks, I hope you had fun, mate. I hope you had fun. Keep up the great work, Drew. You're playing a fucking blinder. Delighted for you. This is the first match in what will likely be a long feud, as long as Punk doesn't do a Punk and injure himself within the first 5 minutes of it starting. And usually the first match of a feud like this sees the heel win to keep the heat of the feud alive. And that's what I think is happening here. But the big question with that is, who is the heel in this feud? The feud began with Drew being a prick, telling Punk that he'd dreamed of his injury happening and then headbutting him. But since then, all we've seen is Punk costing Drew opportunity after opportunity, including in his big hometown title match in Scotland. I think this match is where we kind of make things formal. Drew has had enough and he's ready to finally squash this sneaky little bug. He comes out swinging and dominating. Punk has a bit of ring rust from being off so long and he can't keep up with Drew, and he's not being driven by emotion and is a veteran, so he's able to use some underhanded tactics to get the advantage. The fans, who will probably be split to start the match, realize that Drew is the real hero here and Punk is a sneaky little weasel. Seth Rollins, being the ref, can amp this up a lot, getting in Punk's face constantly because they obviously have a thing going on as well. The fans accept that they want Drew to put this fool in the ground. But a defining characteristic of Drew's current character is that, just as it seems, as he's about to finally fulfill his potential and win the big one, it gets snatched away from him. Unbeknownst to Rollins, maybe he gets knocked down, blinded, or distracted, or he's just like me as a ref and decides to just randomly turn around for no reason whatsoever. There was no reason for me to turn around in that clip. But Punk hits Drew with brass knucks or some other gimmick and gets an unsatisfying 3, and we're on to round 2, where the stakes have now been raised and the battle lines have been drawn, and we now know who the face and heel in this feud is. As if all of that wasn't enough, let's now discuss the main event. Cody Rhodes defends the Undisputed Championship against the new Tribal Chief, Solo Sikoa, who'll no doubt be flanked by the New Look Bloodline. The big question hanging over this is whether or not Roman Reigns is coming back after Solo has spent the build up to this calling him out and calling himself the Tribal Chief. 75% of you think yes, based on an Instagram poll we ran during the week. But if he does come back, the question becomes, how does he come back? What does he do? Does he make the save for Cody, or how does that look? A few things to consider here. Okay, first off, if this is a surprise, they need to make this moment iconic, because the roof, if you do this right, will absolutely explode in the arena and in Woolshed if you're at the SummerSlam party next week when we hear the first bars of his theme song. So you need the theme song. You can't do anything gimmicky like just have him run in or be a fake crowd member in a mask. This is Reigns. It has to feel big, and it's going to feel big. You need a long walk down to the ring. You need Solo standing tall in the ring for like a stare down confrontation. You need to build that anticipation to really get the moment as iconic as possible. Also, because this is a Bloodline storyline, don't bet on there being a resolution with Roman and Solo beating the piss out of each other. The entire Bloodline saga has worked through slow build moments built around tension and needing to tune into next week's SmackDown to find out what it all means. So I don't think we're going to get to see Paul Heyman either, because the intrigue is based around what Reigns will do, how he's going to react. Is there any chance he'll accept Solo, or will he demand Solo acknowledges him? And if you have Heyman come out and introduce Reigns, you instantly know that Heyman is going to be anti-Solo, so that gets rid of that. So for that reason, I think we're going off the air at SummerSlam with a bit of a to be continued as the two of them square up. The question then is how we get there, and what does that mean for the championship? Well, first off, if that's how we actually end it, and I feel relatively confident in that, it means the Solo has to be standing tall. Does that mean he's going to win the title? I'm going to go with no on this. I think the real feud here is about Solo versus Roman, which will probably be a precursor for inevitable Rock versus Roman WrestleMania feud. And sure, you could absolutely make all of that a title match, but it also doesn't need to be, as fighting for the titles of Tribal Chief and head of the table status is more than enough. And that way you don't sacrifice Cody either. So I think Cody is retaining here, probably with Kevin Owens and Randy Orton evening the odds of the inevitable Bloodline assault, and probably quickly via a roll-up or something opportunistic, as there's no reason to kind of diminish Solo as a threat either, because he's going to have to be challenging Reigns as an equal too, remember. Afterwards, Solo has an absolute shit fit, and numbers game of the Bloodline overwhelms Cody, KO, and Orton, which leaves them standing tall in the ring, the bell ringing, everything's going crazy, and the opportunity primed for Reigns' music to hit. It hits, he makes the slow walk down, the crowd go insane, the Bloodline freak the fuck out and start to turn to each other, asking what to do as Solo tells them to hold their ground. Reigns gets in the ring, Solo squares up with him with the Bloodline on his back as we go off the air, hearing Solo say the words to Roman Reigns, "Acknowledge me." Cleveland goes insane, Woolshed goes insane, Where are you for this moment? Are you in Cleveland? No. Are you at home by yourself with a ball of energy and nothing to do with it? Or are you around a bunch of hyped wrestling fans in Woolshed, having had a rake of points and hundreds of other people to discuss what happens next with? It's a very easy decision. I told you earlier on, hear me out, and now I think you'll agree. SummerSlam has the potential to be fucking class. But even if none of that happens, and it's not, watch it with us, and we'll make sure you still have a night that you're going to remember and talk about for years. So get on to eventbrite.ie now and party with us next Saturday in the Woolshed, Dublin. See you then, guys. And until then, that's the bottom line, because Low Blow said so.